everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Today on Another View, we continue our Race Let's Talk About It discussions. Our topic, waging peace beyond extremism to our Muslim American neighbors. The terrorist act this week in New York once again puts Islam in a negative spotlight. But what is the truth about this religion? What does it mean to be of the Islamic faith? How do Muslim Americans feel about extremists who kill and maim in the name of Allah? Our guests are community activists Saher Mirza and Chaplain Joshua Salaam, separating fact from fiction about being Muslim and American. We'll talk about it next on Another View, so please stay tuned.
Discussing today's topics from an African-American perspective, this is Another View.
Hi, everybody. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. Welcome to Another View. Since 2015, Another View and WHRO have hosted town hall discussions about race. We call the series Race Let's Talk About It, and we've covered topics from police brutality in the African-American community to privilege, power, and difference. Last week at Fort Monroe, we showed the film James Baldwin, The Price of the Ticket, and discussed Baldwin's take on race relations in the 60s and how his words, so sadly, are still appropriate today. Our thanks to all of you who came out to join our conversation. Now, tomorrow we hold our 8th Race Let's Talk About It conversation, and we expand our focus from race to religion. The topic, waging peace beyond extremism to our Muslim American neighbors. It's at Virginia Wesleyan University's Boyd Dining Center at 2:30 p.m., and there is plenty of time still to register. Please go to whro.org/talkaboutrace. The conversation is free and open to everyone. And as always, we start our town hall conversations on air, and today is no different. So what is it like to be Muslim American in today's society? How much do we really know about Islam? And is the terrorist act that happened in New York this week really representative of the faith? Here to shed some light on Islam and being Muslim American is Saher Mirza, a woman of the Islamic faith. And joining me by phone is Chaplain Joshua Salaam with the All Dulles Area Muslim Society, or ADAMS. First of all, Saher, hi. How are you?
Hi, Barbara. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. And Chaplain Salaam, how are you? Hello?
Yes, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just making sure that you're there with us.
I'm here with you.
Oh, fantastic. So before we start, I want to get some definitions on the table. And I'm going to start with you. By the way, to my audience, Saher, you said I could call you by your first name,
yes.
Correct? And Brother Joshua, you said that that was an appropriate way for me to address you. Is that correct?
As you like. That's that.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I do not want to offend, absolutely. But let me start with you, Brother Joshua. What is Islam and what is Muslim?
Well, they're both Arabic words, and so if you're not translating, somebody could be really confused. But and they're connected to one another. So Islam is submission. Willful submission, not forced. It's willful submission, and then it has a connotation of peace to it. And then a Muslim, basically putting that M before that word, is one who is doing that. So an individual who is trying their best to submit to God's will is in Arabic called a Muslim. Okay, so Islam is the religion, and Muslim is a person who practices Islam.
Yes.
Correct? Go ahead, Saher.
Yeah,
yes.
that's a good way to break it down.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that we're clear on terms because I think people get confused in the beginning. So, Saher, tell us, what does it mean in real terms, in terms of what you believe? What does the Islamic faith portray in terms of God and in terms of the belief?
Well, Islam, like Brother said, is submission to God, willful submission to God. And like all religions, there's a number of rituals that are involved with that. The most important part of being a Muslim, of course, is that you're submitting to the will of God, and it's known as the Shahada, which is the testimony of faith. And all it is, when people say how easy or hard is it to convert to Islam, anybody who comes in and says, I believe that there is only one God, and I believe that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his messenger, is a Muslim. Now, after that, there is a number of other pillars. There's 5 pillars that as Muslims we follow. Of course, the testimony, like I said. There's the month of Ramadan when we fast. There's zakat, which is charity, the 5 daily prayers, and then once in a lifetime, if you can make the Hajj. So those 5 pillars are the basic.
The Hajj is when you go to Mecca.
To Mecca. That's the pilgrimage to Mecca, once in a lifetime if you can afford it. Now, if those are the basic tenets of Islam. So basically, when I say I'm a Muslim, I am, believing in all those and trying to achieve all those. And of course, if you look deeper and dig deeper, then each of those has, further, it's kind of like mining in deeper, and we can go further and say charity. There's zakat, which is compulsory charity. I mean, I get a lot of questions where people are not aware that Islam is a very charitable religion. There's extreme focus on charity. Charity is 2 kinds. Zakat, which is compulsory charity, and then there's sadaqah, which is something that it can be an act of kindness. It can be something as simple as, hey, Barbara, you're not having a nice day, smile. It could be picking up a pebble from someone's. So Islam is a very charitable religion, lots of focus on that. And again, I think that pretty much the 5 pillars covers it.
So, Brother Joshua, I got some flack this morning about the fact that our show is on at 12 noon on a Friday, and that people wanted to know how you were able to join us. Can you explain about the 5 different prayers and when they happen and what their purpose is?
You got some flack, huh?
A little bit.
Surprise.
Well, I wish that Muslims had the monopoly on flack, but I think that it comes from all different kind of people. But at my mosque, we have multiple timings for Jama'ah, and they only last 30 minutes. So, depending on where your community's from, maybe their service lasts for an hour or more. But because of the size of our community, people have to come in, observe their religious obligation, and then get back to work. So our earliest one starts at 11:30, and our latest one starts at 2 o'clock. And so since you notified me over a week ago or so that you want this interview, I scheduled myself to go to the 2 o'clock Friday prayer service. So
I see.
Let them know I'm still Muslim. They don't have to much flack.
So there is flexibility, but there is a practice of 5 times a day. Can you explain when they happen during the day and what they mean?
Yeah, so not just Islam. I think Judaism also. There's a lot of timing, even in early civilization. Everybody kept time by the sun, right? We didn't have watches and all that. You made a sundial or a sun clock, and the moon is for the months. Those who study the moon, it's very, very precise, either 28 or 29 days, no more, no less. And so the prayers, you can kind of time it by the sun. So sometimes the first prayer is really early. It might be summer months, and sometimes it could be later, the winter months. So right now we're praying our first prayer before the sun rises, which is, at Adams Center, we're praying at around 6:30, 6:45 or so. The second one is at about noon, when the sun is at its zenith. The third one is prayed, kind of the late afternoon. And the fourth one happens right after the sun sets. And then the 5th prayer happens when all the light is out of the sky.
Okay.
So the sun has
So
a little bit further past the horizon.
And is there a different focus for each prayer, or is it the same focus?
No, there's different cycles. Like one prayer might be 2 cycles, and it's hard for me to explain what a cycle is over the phone. But it's a formations of standing up, bowing over, putting your head on the ground, and things like that. So some of them might have 2 cycles, some of them might have 4 or 3 or whatever. But the focus is really the same of taking a minute or 5 minutes from your busy schedule to be thankful to God, to ask for forgiveness, to just realign yourself and refocus yourself. And as you said, there's flexibility. So even though the prayer might take 5 to 10 minutes, you normally have, except for one of the prayers, you normally have a couple of hours between an hour and 3 hours.
To make sure that you're there. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I want to make sure your phone was still there. Went out a little bit. So men and women pray separately.
They do here,
Correct?
yes, they do.
Here, go ahead.
In the holy mosques, we don't have separate rooms, but there's separate areas for. And again, like the brother said, if you watch how the Muslims pray, it's more of a comfort thing for the women to be behind. I get that question a lot, and for me personally, as a Muslim who prays, just the way the cycles are done and the action is, it's more comfortable for us to be in a separate room or behind,
so that men
Yes.
aren't looking at you from behind.
Yes, because and if anybody has observed the Muslim prayer, they would really understand. I mean, I have a lot of people ask that, and then they come and visit us at the mosque, and the women are like, "Yeah, I totally get it," because I wouldn't want to be in the front. So, it has nothing to do with subjugation or any such thing.
And when you pray, because I'm if I'm not mistaken, I've been to the mosque once or twice, but there is some chant that goes along, but are individuals praying their individual prayer, just as they do in Christianity?
When you're praying behind the imam, and the brother can answer that better too. You are praying with him, so he is praying for you. There's certain things he does, and certain things you're doing individually as well. So it's almost like a combined ritual at that point. But when you're at home and you're praying, then you're praying on your own, and you're doing everything by yourself.
By yourself there. Okay, so Brother Joshua, you are a chaplain at Adams, which is the All Dulles. Where is it? Yeah, the All Dulles Area Muslim Society. That's the mosque there. So why are you not an imam? What's the difference?
Oh, good question. There's a little difference. Normally, chaplains are working outside of religious institutions. They're working in the prisons, they're working in the hospitals, the universities, and one could argue that they have the title of chaplain to kind of negotiate this space between the separation of church and state. People don't want to say, "Oh, we have a Jewish person, a rabbi or a pastor or an imam working here." They might give them a title of chaplain, but it's really a little bit more than that. A chaplain is trained to be an emotional and spiritual caretaker and pastoral caretaker for people of all faiths, not just in their particular faith. So there's some different training that a chaplain may receive that an imam wouldn't, and vice versa. Most Muslim communities have a certain expectation of what their imam should know. Actually, a lot of people in the Muslim community complain that it's a pretty high expectation. They want them to have memorized the Quran, to be Arabic, to have a professional marriage counseling and youth counseling, and be politically active and interfaith events and things like that.
Oh, you mean
so
like a preacher in the Christian community?
Yeah,
expected to handle everything. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's a lot of those things that I don't fall into that category. But it really depends on the community that you're serving. So you go to some communities where they're not expecting their imam to have memorized the Quran. They're expecting their imam to be more of a social leader. And someone else may be expecting their imam to be more of a local scholar, and that's it, and not to be involved with counseling or interfaith or a political event. So it really depends on the community and the needs of that community. But the community that I am, they have two very capable imams, Imam Majid, Sheikh Abdurafa. Those are our two imams, and we have other very knowledgeable people. So I'm comfortable in my role as chaplain.
So, Saher, here in Hampton Roads, there are many mosques?
There's 3 or 4 mosques.
3 or 4. Okay.
And I don't want to be quoted on that, but 3 or 4 that I'm aware of. Okay. And as the brother said, our imams, we are a smaller community, so it's more of a volunteer thing. We have a sheikh that has come in who has he's memorized the Quran and stuff, and we have an imam who leads us in prayer. And now the sheikh is leading us in prayer recently. That's what I've been told. And I think different mosques have their different imams. And again, I agree with brother that it's very, very dependent on what your congregation requires for you. It's a very flex role. It could be a huge role, or it could be simply as much as just leading us in prayers.
Now, there are all people of all ethnicities and races that are Muslim.
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Because you were born where?
I was born in India. I grew up in Africa. And that is one of a very important thing that a lot of people just assume Islam to be Arabic. Islam has, of course, Islam was, our prophet was from Saudi Arabia, and it is the fountainhead of where the religion came from. But more than 70% of Muslims are non-Arabs. The largest country where, the country with the largest number of Muslims is Indonesia, which is a country in Asia. The second largest population of Muslims is in India. So I grew up in Africa. Nigeria is a Muslim majority country. So we're kind of all over the globe. It's a very, very international flavor to it.
And Brother Joshua, you're African American, correct?
True.
Okay.
And I was going to give you an example of that Imam thing. I know you've moved on, but when I was in the military, I started a service. I helped to get a service started on the base because there was no Muslim services. And then Muslims started coming out of the woodwork on the Air Force base. And when they all came out, we looked at each other and they were like, "Okay, who's gonna lead the prayer?" And since I was the one who at least got it started, they said, "You do it." And I was like, I'll go how to do it. And I just had to learn how to do it at that time. And then I became the imam of that community, even though my knowledge was nowhere near many other imams in the United States. But for that community, for them, I was their imam.
So it worked for that community. Absolutely.
That's
and
right.
and we were just talking about, because the other thing, as I was telling you, I got a little flack from some folks regarding this, but I do want to make the point that anyone from any race or any ethnicity, as long as they profess their love for God and Muhammad, correct?
As the messenger
of God, then they would be Muslim.
Yes, and you could be any color. And that's why I tell people, come to the mosque, visit us and see. And when you walk into the mosque, it's almost like a cultural amalgamation. I mean, there's black, white, yellow, blue, all colors of us and all races of us. Islam is not defined by a race. And that is one of the beauties of Islam, that to me as a Muslim, when I walk into a mosque, it's an international community. I mean, there's people from all wakes of life, all colors, and all standing together in prayer.
And I want to talk about what happened in New York in just a minute, but we've got phone lines already. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. We're learning about what it means to be Muslim American and what is all about the faith of Islam. 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. Henry joins us from Norfolk. Hi, Henry. You're on the air.
Hello. How are you?
Okay. Go ahead with your question or your comment.
Oh, well, I was actually, prior, I was invited to join the show and I suppose share my experience.
Uh-huh.
I am an American Muslim. I come from a Caucasian background, and I've been Muslim since 1994.
And what made you become Muslim?
I'd say that I was interested in the religion from learning about some of the history of the Middle East. I was interested in history. I was also interested in the history of the civil rights movement in America, so I learned about Malcolm X and his spiritual journey. And but when I actually began reading from the English translation of the Quran, that's when I found something that was personally valuable, that made me want to convert, which I guess the best way I can articulate it is that I see Islam as having what I call a fail-safe theology.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, in Islam, we believe in God as the creator. We do not make assumptions about what appearance God could have. We see God as having no beginning, God as having no ending, God as being beyond space and time. And for me, these are undeniable truths that you can have faith in, but they also they are also in lockstep with logic. And so, Islam is a religion that I feel comfortable, living on, and as I reach old age, hopefully, passing on.
Okay. Henry, thanks so much for the phone call. We appreciate it. Saher, I see you nodding your head as he was speaking.
No, I really appreciate Brother Henry calling in, because that is one of the reasons that, I am Muslim, because the logic, Islam is scientific, it's logical. The aspect of God being, without a beginning, without an end. Mm-hmm. All those things make it so much easier as an educated individual for me to understand. And it's very, very in line with sciences, and it's very, very in line with what is practical. I call it a very practical religion. So that's why I was nodding my head. So I really appreciate it.
Let me ask you a question then, because I can hear some people saying, well, but you are supposed to wear your hair completely covered, your body completely covered. There seems to be this whole mystery around women in Islam, or Muslim women, and how they are supposed to present themselves, that a lot of people from the Western world don't understand. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The first thing I want to say is that when you see women dressed like that, please do not assume they're oppressed. It is certainly a choice for most of the Muslim women. And if you are interested in learning about that, then my suggestion is, just like God has a set of moderation and modesty rules for women, he has the same modesty rules for men about how to dress and modesty of glance. And, Barbara, you and I have talked about that before. There's no coercion. When we cover, I personally choose not to cover, but when Muslim women choose to cover, it's not a sign of oppression. It's not impractical. For them, it's very practical. Mm-hmm. So to me, the concept of covering, a lot of people like to give that example that, when you have a candy and it's open, would you pick that up, or would you pick? But to me, I think it's also more because a lot of Muslim women feel empowered, and they feel that when they are covered, they're not judged by, we hear people being judged and stereotypes on their looks and stuff. So it gives them a more level playing field. So that's how I look at it. I dress modestly, and women that cover, of course, dress modestly. It's all about covering your hair and dressing a certain way. But then on the other end, God also asks the men. He says you have to dress a certain, you have to be a certain way. And modesty of gaze is so big for the Muslim man. When you meet a woman, how do you interact with her? How do you talk to her? There's a space, personal space for a Muslim woman, which I think none of the other, and that's where we come back to the practical aspects. The more you learn about Islam, the more I've been on my journey, the more I realize that the Prophet, and God first, of course, and the Prophet have laid out this practical framework for us to follow. And you can always go back to that. And it makes sense. Even in the 21st century, it makes sense.
So, Brother Joshua, let me ask you about the gaze, and from the male perspective, what does God tell you to do in terms of respecting women and the gaze?
That's funny. You talked to her about the modesty, and then Joshua about the gaze. Okay, well, let me add something first to her discussion. I just want to say that, from me growing up in public school and going to college, university, and then in the military, everybody has some limits. In the public school, they have limits on what you can wear to school. There's a certain point where the school will send you home if you have taken off too much.
Yes, there's a dress code.
That's inappropriate. Can't go into certain restaurants or into certain areas of public to address inappropriate. So the society as a whole still has some limits. It's just that people are upset. They have to really evaluate why they're upset that Muslim women are wearing more than they do, and they want to take it off. Because I guarantee you, in certain areas of America, there's people with less limits than you that are trying to get your young girls to take off more, to show more skin beyond what you and your family think is comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really about respecting the women's wishes. And the sister said, if she's doing it by choice, people have to respect that choice,
right,
and just respect the way that the person decided to dress, as opposed to trying to make them fit into some social norm of you're not showing enough skin to make us comfortable. And they do have nudist beaches, even if somebody wants to advance their level of comfort, find one. But most people would be comfortable there, and that should be okay with everybody. As far as the gays, yeah, Muslim men and women really are encouraged to not be gawking and just staring at people and making them feel uncomfortable. See somebody who's attractive, and you obviously looked at them because you identified that they were attractive. After that, you should try to alter your glance to something else or lower it so that for your own well-being and also to make that person feel safe and comfortable.
So it sounds it sounds like respect.
Okay,
I said it sounds like respect.
And there's no coercion. I just want to keep pushing that a lot of people think it's coercion. In Islam, when God is talking to me in the Quran, it's my relationship with God. So if I choose to dress a certain way, I'm answerable to God. Nobody's allowed to force me to dress a certain way. And, women's rights are so well formed in Islam. That you're not allowed to, force people to dress a certain way.
No, we have to talk about marriage too, which is very interesting. But if you're just joining us, we're talking about Islam and what it means to be Muslim American with Saher Mirza, a woman of the Islamic faith, and Joshua Salaam, chaplain with Adams, All Dulles Area Muslim Society. I want to remind you all that you can call 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 to join our conversation. I want to play something for both of you unfortunately, on this past Tuesday, we had a terrorist attack in New York City. And there was a professor in New York who met with Ari Shapiro, who's the host of All Things Considered. And he had this to say about the response to Muslim Americans based on what this gentleman did.
As you hinted at, the backlash against Muslims that are going to come after this. But this is our city, and it's up to us to really make it as resilient as we can, and that means not turning on each other.
And so at this point, are you almost expecting a backlash?
I think we've seen this cycle repeatedly, that there is an attack. Whether it's committed by a Muslim or not, there's often a backlash against Muslim communities. And when it is committed by a Muslim, there's a real sense of collective guilt. And I really feel, particularly for Muslim women who wear hijab, who are very visibly Muslim, to be in this environment right now.
I understand the experience of collective blame because we so often see a jump in hate crimes. I'm surprised to hear you say there's a sense of collective guilt.
Oh, I don't know if Muslims feel a sense of collective guilt. I think it's more that they are told that they should be collectively guilty. And really, it's not just Muslims. Again, it's obviously Muslim women who are in hijab, but also Sikh men in turbans and beards. It's basically an excuse to let out our worst racist instincts.
Your response, Saher?
I agree. I mean,
were you worried that people were going to...
I was worried. I've always been worried about, whenever there is an attack. And again, with our conversations before, I have had to teach myself, because every time there's an attack, my first instinct is to say, oh, I hope it's not a Muslim. And it makes me feel sad that I've come to that point as a human being where, a normal human reaction to an attack would be, oh my gosh, I hope everyone's okay. Oh my gosh. But my first reaction as a Muslim is, oh my gosh, I hope it's not another crazy person doing it in the name of Islam. And then secondly, then when I'm done with that part, I start thinking about that. And so I have to actually teach myself almost to stop doing that. And I've said this before, I did live in a collective guilt way. After 9/11, I used to find myself forever apologizing to people every time there was an attack. And I think in 2016, I'm raising a young girl. I realized that she's a patriotic American Muslim, and the two terms are not mutually exclusive, that we need to stop. I mean, some of us do feel that collective guilt. And when I don't expect someone of the Caucasian race to apologize for what happened in Vegas, because there are crazy people everywhere, then I expect the same respect as a human being and as a fellow American, to be given that same respect and say, hey, I understand you have nothing to do with it. But we do catch ourselves. I mean, as a Muslim, I have caught myself having that guilt, almost like guilt by association. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, I like to say I was what I call an apologist Muslim. Every time there was something, even if you asked me or not, I just felt this need to apologize and say, hey, I'm very sorry. And then the practicality of it, when you sit down to think, I have no control over that. And I finally decided, not in my religion's name, I am not going to even acknowledge that as, why should I apologize for something that I have no control over? And I know that my religion does not condone.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and that's what I wanted to ask you about, Brother Joshua. So they say this guy is a part of the Islamic State. His name, what is his name? Yes, Saifullah Saipov. And they're talking about that he's a part of the Islamic State. What is the difference? And how do you feel when people use the name of Allah and commit these atrocities?
Oh man, can you hear me?
Yes. Now we can.
When I was in the military, I was a police officer, and it was clear to us. It didn't matter who you were committing the crime. If you and we had our rules of when we were supposed to pull our weapon and when we weren't. We felt like somebody's life was in danger, pull our weapon. It doesn't matter if he's Christian. Doesn't matter if he's Muslim. Doesn't matter if he's a mayor. Doesn't matter if he's rich or poor. You just have these things that you're supposed to do to protect others, and that's how all Muslims are. That I know, and that 99% of people know. They're just like that. They do their best to stop fights in schools. They're doing work in the inner city, crime. They want people to have access to health care and shelter and food. What frustrates, I think, a lot of Muslims is, first of all, you have Muslims on the New York City Police Department. And I think for a while, and you have, I'm not sure if they had a Muslim there, but I know you have some Muslims in the political system there too, who are putting their lives on the line every day to stop stuff like that.
Yeah, your phone is,
that's not something to expect.
Brother Joshua, your phone is breaking up really, really badly. I think I'm going to have my producer call you back in just a moment so that we can continue the conversation and we can actually hear you a little bit better. So if you will hang up, she'll call you right back. Okay. In the meantime, we will continue our conversation, and let's talk to Heather in Virginia Beach. Hi, Heather. You're on the air.
Yes, I'm calling to give my blessings to this panel. They're wonderful brothers and sisters. My father-in-law worked for Voice of America. He was born in northern India and practiced Islam, and he was the most generous, beneficial, kind, compassionate human being that I've ever known. I am a great-granddaughter of William Brewster of the Mayflower, and our conversations about people of faith, religious tolerance, religious freedom, and the goodness that we, people of faith, bring, our modesty, our sense of respect, freedom, liberty, and respect, and being grateful for the divine in our life. And these wonderful people are carrying forth this beautiful, and I have my father-in-law's prayer rug, and I just love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clearly, Heather's very emotional about that. Brother Joshua, you're back?
I'm back.
Okay. All right. Let's try that again. So you were talking about the fact that there are police officers in New York who are Muslim.
Yes, there's police officers, there's firefighters, there's politicians who are going to work every day, putting their lives on the line. And mostly because of their faith, they believe that that's a part of their religious duty and obligation to make the society that they're living in better, right? Mm-hmm. So the frustration that comes across, the Muslim world, it's not even 99%. It's like 99.9% of the Muslims in the world is that because it's not like I said, we don't have a monopoly on flack that you were getting, and we don't have a monopoly on people who are willing to go out and run their car into somebody or shoot masses of people or blow people up, but it happens. And we notice that when it happens with someone who's Muslim, their religion is the first thing that comes up, not whether or not they had a mental illness, history, a violent history with their family or abusive to their spouse or anything like that. First thing that comes up is that they're Muslim, and what's their connection to any websites that they may have been viewing, connections to international terrorism. And as a police officer, I would like to know that about every criminal, not just the Muslim ones. I want to know what got them to this point? What websites were they using? Did their faith have something to do with it? Was there a friend that was egging them on? I want everybody to, that's how we used to do proper investigations, not just to focus on one group. So I think that's what frustrates Muslims. It's not that we don't want criminals caught and put to justice and everybody to be safe, but the same way that, what America was supposed to be built on was, justice for everyone. And that means the criminal justice system as well, not just for Hispanics and blacks, but for whites and others. They should get the same penalty for the same crime.
The same treatment. Let's go to Mustafa. Hi, you're on the air.
Yes, good day to you.
Good day.
I insist on brother, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam.
I wanted to tell you, I'm from Bahrain. My country is like Sweden, very neutral, but it's a Muslim country. We have a mosque, many mosques. We have Jewish mosques. We have Christian centers. We have Orthodox. We have all different, how can I put it, places of worship in my country. My country is not bigger than Puerto Rico.
You said your country is
not bigger than
Puerto Rico. Not bigger than Puerto Rico, right?
Exactly. We get along as a people in general, get along with no problem whatsoever. And I wanted to correct the wording of the dress is hijab. My wife wears this, but lately my wife asked me personally, because I'm so used to her in a hijab, can she stop wearing it because of the issues that people have been approaching her, not violently, but approaching her, I want to say swollen up, kind of, what are you doing here kind of thing. And my wife is barely 100 pounds.
So she's feeling threatened because of her appearance.
Yes. I've been here in Hampton Roads since 1982.
And has her harassment been recent, or has it been all along since you've been here?
It comes and goes. Anytime the media puts the faith as of big bold letters, it comes out in the public stronger, and then it dies down.
So what did you tell her? I'm curious. What did you tell her?
I told her stand by your faith in your heart. What you want to do, and I will reconstitute what we say, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, bear witness to God, there's no God but Allah. I tell her to her, I said, anytime that happens, recite in your mind, let them walk away. But you make the choice. But I support her, ever what she wants to do, especially at this time.
Thank you so very much for your call, sir. I appreciate that. Saher.
I mean, just on that same topic, I would like to say is in the recent few weeks, we have had Vegas and we have had New York. And I think for people can see the difference in the way the media has handled that. I, as a Muslim, my appeal to everybody, and that's why I'm here today, Barbara, is because you are talking about it. My appeal to the media is, your words matter. People listen and they act out. There are people that are getting hurt because of the way things are handled, the way things are. Someone that goes out and drives a car and, kills 8 people, there has to be something wrong with that. That's not a normal person. Why are we not looking at that for him? Why were we giving that benefit of doubt to the person from Vegas? Can we at least just get the same treatment? That's just, that's a appeal from the bottom of my heart.
You said to me that in 2016, as you're watching your daughter grow up and as the political climate started to change here, that you felt it was important to start Coffee with a Muslim.
I did.
Where you are talking to interfaith groups, to your neighbors, to anybody who wants to talk about who wants to talk about Islam. And but you took this on kind of as a personal crusade.
I did. And again, I would like to believe that I started out as a selfless person, but it was because of things that were happening to me, things that I was seeing changes in my daughter and her desire not to, not to be identified as a Muslim American. It was almost like the terms were mutually exclusive. And when I started reading up, and I don't want to quote figures, but let's just say that there's a lot of Americans that have never met a Muslim, or they don't know they have met a Muslim. And a lot of their information about Islam and Muslims is just basically what the media is showing. So basically the New York terror attack or 9/11, or what is out there on the internet. And I sometimes, as a Muslim, when I'm looking for answers and I go on the internet and the websites that come up, I'm like, oh my gosh,
I have to tell you,
makes
honestly,
sense.
as I started doing the research for today's show, I found myself having to look very carefully at the perspective, whose website was it and what their perspective was, because it's some scary stuff out there.
And I agree, because as a Muslim, there are times when, because things can be taken out of context so quickly in any religion. So my appeal, that's why I started Coffee with a Muslim, was because I was ready to talk about it. And, I always feel that if I want to learn about Christianity, I will come to a Christian to learn about it. And so that was the logic behind it. And also the fact that come and ask me the questions. And maybe if I put a face to a Muslim person, it would be harder for you to hate me knowing that I'm exactly like you. When I walk in, usually I do it at a Panera Bread or a house and stuff, and people see I'm very, I don't have an extra horn on my head, or, I think it's very important to put a face. And, the Muslim community has been working very hard in the Hampton Roads too. We've been trying to open our doors to the mosques. We encourage people to come. My appeal today, and is that, look for yourself, learn for yourself, come meet us. We're here. We're part of the society. I mean, there's almost more than 3 million of us. We're not going anywhere. Let's live in brotherhood. Islam is a peaceful religion. Come and learn about it from me. Don't learn from the internet, because I could bring out so many other things about different religions that are so not true and taken out of context on the internet. Let's just say the internet is not a great place to find out about religion.
And Brother Joshua, you spend a lot of time in my hometown of Baltimore, working the streets, working in the inner cities, helping the Muslim community get established there. Are you doing that? And did you do that for the same reasons that Saher was just talking about, in terms of so that you could just teach others about what Islam is all about?
No, I wasn't interested in teaching anybody. Okay. I was interested in serving the community that I lived in, and trying to make a footprint on this earth before I'm called back to the Lord. On what have I done with my time, right? And actually, I got this quote from a Christian pastor in a book that I was reading, and he was saying people should preach all the time, and sometimes they should use their words. And he was basically saying, there's other ways to spread the teachings of Jesus Christ, the teachings of Prophet Moses and Prophet Muhammad, and you can do it through your actions. And I felt like if I could get out there and help clean up the streets of Baltimore and the neighborhood that I was living in, and go out there and speak with the drug dealers and ask them if they could please remove themselves or try to find some positive things, and involve myself in community cleanups and picking up trash off the streets, and getting involved with the community association and try to get a better grocery store on the corner, that I would be doing something that I felt would be making, my creator proud. I didn't really care if people knew I was Muslim. And then sometimes I did, because, it's like when you, if you have a bad reputation, you say, hey, I'm not that bad, but I always thought that would mess up my intention. But that wasn't my primary intention. It was just to get out there and try to do some good.
Okay. Let's talk to Rachel in Virginia Beach. Hi, Rachel. You on the air?
Good morning. Oh, good afternoon, rather.
Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to say I'm Roman Catholic. I was baptized Roman Catholic.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. I really understood what Muslim and Islam was in undergrad. I was a philosophy major. We, of course, had to do tons of studying in religion and philosophy. And I realized how much Christianity and Islam actually had to offer. They were actually very similar in the sense that they really just kind of really preached a lot of positivity. And when I was stationed in Iraq, I had to deal with a lot of Muslims and a lot of people who we would consider terrorists here in the United States, But in general, they just want to live peacefully, raise their family, and worship their own God. And I have to often remind people when they have this aggressive notion towards Muslims and things like that, that like Muslims in a general sense are like the new age of what Christianity was when Christianity first started becoming a very popular concept. And it's kind of at this point trying to find its way. And I mean, I think someone mentioned that you guys have almost 3 billion Muslims in the world. I mean, this is a huge, huge religion. It's not going to go anywhere. And I think that it's important that you guys are doing this and actually explaining this, because I think Christians and Muslims actually have a lot in common. They just don't realize that it's a different message from a different person.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having this.
Not a problem. Thank you. We appreciate that. She's right. I mean, in terms of there are a lot of commonalities. One question I want to ask you, and I'll ask both of you to respond to this, but the whole question of Jesus, where does he fit within Islam compared to where he fits within Christianity? And I'll start with you, Chaplain.
Well, I think a lot of people would be happy to know that Muslims are waiting for the return of, well, not waiting, but expecting Jesus to return in the final days. We believe in all the miraculous teachings about Jesus, of his miraculous birth, his miraculous ascension to the heavens, his ability to raise people from the dead, to make a clay bird fly, healing leprosy and blind people. We believe in all of that without anybody having to teach us that or tell us that from a different faith. That's things you have to believe if you're going to be a Muslim. Only difference is we believe that those were gifts given to him by God, and God gave him the ability to do those things, and he indeed do them. And it was at one of the classes that I was taking with the other Christian students, the professor did something interesting and had, told people to stand up or sit down based on what they believed. And it was all about Jesus and Mary. And, stand up if you believe this, stand up if you believe that. And when it came to the miraculous birth of Jesus, all the Muslims stood up, and not all the Christians stood up. And they thought that was weird. And, so there's some diversity in the belief of Christianity about Jesus and Mary and what happened and what didn't happen at that time. But Muslims are unanimous in that we have to believe in that he was born without a father, and that he is even referred to in the Quran as the Spirit of God. And there's many more teachings. So, yes, that's summary of what Muslims believe in Jesus, and have to love him, have to accept his teachings as we know them, which is he came and taught about God and tried to get people to focus on worshiping God and correcting their behavior and not focusing on money, and not even focusing so much on rituals, and getting back to the love of God and the love of humanity. And Muslims accept that. We have to believe that.
Okay, Saher.
Just adding on to it, there's an entire chapter called Surah Maryam, Maryam being the mother of Jesus. I think we believe in Jesus as a prophet, just like we believe in Abraham and Moses. And again, a lot of people ask us, about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon all of them. We believe that Prophet Muhammad too is a messenger of God. I mean, he's gifted to be a messenger of God, just like Jesus. The difference, though, is we, of course, do not believe in the Trinity. We do not believe, as the brother said, we believe that Jesus was very human. He was a messenger of God. And he's mentioned in the Quran. All the stories about Jesus that the brother talked about, they're mentioned in the Quran. They're in the Quran. And to be a Muslim, you have to believe in the miraculous birth of Jesus. I mean, we have there are times that when I meet people and I put out the passage from the Quran that when Archangel Gabriel came to Mary to tell her about the birth of Jesus, and some people actually think I'm quoting from the Bible, and it's like, no, this is from Surah Maryam. So there are lots of similarities, and Jesus is a revered prophet in our religion, and without believing in him, exactly what the brother said, it's totally a part of the faith.
So we've got about 2 minutes left or so, 2 to 3 minutes left. I want to ask each of you, we have 4 minutes left. My producer just told me. Okay, but still, I want to ask each of you if there was one thing that you could say today for someone who is not familiar with the Islamic faith that you want them to walk away with from our conversation today, what would that be? And I'm going to start with you, Brother Joshua.
There's a verse in the Quran that basically says that God has created us differently, in different nations and different tribes and colors and even different genders, so that we can learn from one another, not that we would be hating one another and despising one another. And so I encourage Muslims and people of all faiths to kind of live by that. And instead of hating people because their hair is blonde or their eyes are blue or their skin is black or brown or whatever, to try to learn, what you can from that culture, from that society, from that family, as much as you can. And you'll find that you have so much in common and you can grow from it instead of building up hate in your heart, which is actually unhealthy physically and spiritually.
That is fantastic. Now, that is Chaplain Joshua Salaam, and he's going to be with us tomorrow at our town hall discussion at the Boyd Dining Center at Virginia Wesleyan University. So we will continue this conversation. We so appreciate you joining us here on Another View today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Hello?
Yes, I'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much, Brother Joshua. And Saher, you have the last words.
Barbara, what I would like people, and I get to hear this all the time, I would like people to understand that there is a specific verse in the Quran. There is no compulsion in religion. I get to hear a lot that, Islam is the religion of the sword. It is not. If practiced correctly, God specifically in the Quran says, you have your religion and I have my religion. It's from Surah Kafirun. And there is no compulsion in Islam. I cannot force anybody to become a Muslim. That is one thing that I want people to understand. And the second thing I want is that people need to understand that Islam is a religion of peace. If you pick up the Quran and read it, it's a very peaceful religion. With everything the media covers, we unfortunately get coverage for all the terrorist attacks and, again, the way it's covered. So if anybody wants to think about Islam, that is what I want them to think about. And I would really encourage people to go out there and get to know a Muslim. Reach out to us, go to the mosque, find a friend for your child in school, someone who's a Muslim, and get to know them and then form an opinion rather than what is out there.
Thank you so very much. And you also will be on our panel tomorrow at Virginia Wesleyan. So we look forward to having you there. And just one real quick question. Can you just go to a mosque? Do you have to be invited? Yes. So you can just show up.
And Fridays are a great day to come because that's when we have our prayers and we have the sermon. And, you can just show up. The mosque is always open at prayer times. And Friday is a great day because it's congregation time and there's lots more people, so lots more Muslims to meet.
Okay, thank you so much. That is Saher Mirza, and she will also join us tomorrow at Virginia Wesleyan College. So knowledge is power, and we have learned a lot today about being a Muslim American. Now, we will continue this conversation tomorrow during our Race Let's Talk About It Town Hall at Virginia Wesleyan University's Boyd Dining Center at 2:30 p.m., and that is a part of the One Love Festival. There is still time to register, whro.org/talkaboutrace. And special thanks to our partners, the Virginia Wesleyan University Center for the Study of Religious Freedom, the YWCA Southampton Roads, and the One Love Festival. Next week, the Another View Roundtable on current events. You know that's going to be a wild conversation. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer. And Kamaria Mason answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Thank you so very, very much for listening to Another View.